Imagine sitting inside a heavily guarded courtroom, waiting for a verdict that depends almost completely on the data pulled from a shattered car's black box. The court said the vehicle was moving at exactly 100 miles per hour. The throttle was pressed all the way down to 100%. And the brakes? 0%. The court record showed no attempt at all to stop before the car slammed into that brick wall at 5:30 in the morning. When Judge Nancy Margaret Russo looked down from the bench to deliver her ruling, the entire courtroom went still. The judge said, "A person does not accidentally drive at peak acceleration into a brick wall without braking." The defense strongly argued that this was a tragic medical blackout, pointing to a condition that can cause a sudden loss of consciousness. But when the gavel finally came down, a young woman who once danced in viral social media videos was given 2 concurrent life sentences. Wow. Just like that, everything changed forever. If you want the real facts behind the headlines, subscribe and join us at US Crime Stories for more deep dives. Let's get into it. At the very center of this case are 2 young men who lost their lives in that fatal crash. Dominic Russo, who was Mackenzie's boyfriend, and Davion Flanagan. Court records clearly noted that Davion was simply an unintended passenger who just happened to be sitting in the back seat, catching a ride that night. He was completely innocent in all of this. The families of both young men sat through every painful day of that trial, listening to technical vehicle data and complicated medical arguments. We have to remember that while the internet gets pulled into the true crime drama and viral courtroom clips, 2 families are waking up every single day without their sons. The human cost here is enormous. Holy moly, it is heavy when you really stop and think about what those families had to sit through in that gallery, hearing police testify about the crash scene. You just cannot gloss over the reality of their loss. So, the trial ends, the media cameras pack up, the viral social media commentary slowly starts to fade, and the transition from a high-profile courtroom to the Ohio Reformatory for Women begins. This is a brutal shift in reality. After her 2023 sentencing, Mackenzie Shirilla was processed into a facility that does not run on internet fame or public opinion. It runs on compliance, strict routine, and official documentation. To understand her current reality, we have to look closely at the institutional shock of the intake process. In the outside world, she was heavily publicized under the nickname Hell on Wheels. That title was everywhere. It dominated local and national news coverage. But once that state transport van pulls up to the reformatory, all of that outside noise stops. Inside those walls, she was stripped of her civilian clothes. The makeup, the style, the entire image she had presented to the world was gone. She was given standard state uniforms and assigned a permanent inmate number. The reality of maximum security processing is designed to remove individuality. That caught me off guard when I first looked into how strict the intake process really is. But every single movement, from meals to recreation, is controlled by the facility's schedule. You do not eat when you want to. You eat when the state says you eat. You do not sleep when you want to. The lights go out when the warden decides. According to verified reports from former inmates and institutional observers, high-profile young prisoners often face an immediate and intense culture clash when they enter a state penitentiary. The friction between an online persona and the hard hierarchy of prison life is well documented. Inside, respect is the main currency. The existing inmate population, women who may have been there for decades, rarely sees viral fame as a replacement for doing your time and following the unwritten rules of the cell block. You cannot just walk in and expect special treatment because your face was on the evening news. Inmate accounts suggest there is a real disconnect between how Shirilla sees her own status and how the rest of the prison population sees her. Reports from inside the facility describe her acting in ways that fellow inmates have characterized as entitled. Now, we have to look at this objectively. When an inmate comes in with outside financial support and heavy media attention, it naturally creates a tense environment. Imagine being an inmate with no outside support at all, relying completely on the state for basic soap and food, then watching someone else reportedly act like they are above the system. That is going to cause friction. There is no way around it. Now, let's look at the arguments that placed her in that environment in the first place. Throughout the trial, the defense argued strongly that Mackenzie was suffering from postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, or POTS. They claimed this medical condition caused her blood pressure to drop, leading to a sudden blackout behind the wheel. The defense said she experienced what is known as pedal misapplication, meaning she pressed the gas thinking it was the brake while losing consciousness. It is a terrifying idea, and the defense presented medical records to support her diagnosis. But the prosecution pushed back hard. Police and crash investigators testified that if a driver passes out, their foot naturally goes limp. They argued that a limp foot does not hold 100% hard downward pressure on the accelerator while the driver precisely steers down a specific path into a wall. The prosecution also brought up phone records, stating that she had scouted the exact location days before. The court agreed with the prosecution, ruling that the black box data showed purpose, and that is why she is currently serving time. Right. It all came down to the conflict between the data in the car and the medical history in her file. Also, we need to clear something up because there is a lot of misinformation out there. Court documents show that she was trapped in the vehicle alongside Dominic and Davion after the impact. Medical records confirmed that she suffered real severe physical injuries, including broken bones, and spent weeks in the hospital under police guard. This is an important fact. Some online spaces claim she completely faked her injuries, but the medical records submitted to the court show actual severe trauma to her body from the crash. However, the court stated that her physical injuries did not erase the data pulled from the car. The digital data is what anchored the state's case from the very beginning. When you move from that hospital bed to a courtroom and then finally into a state penitentiary, the psychological shift has to be massive. The Ohio Reformatory for Women is a sprawling campus. It houses thousands of inmates, ranging from minimum security all the way to maximum. When she arrived, she entered a system that categorizes people based on risk level and behavior. The court said she was responsible for the tragic loss of 2 lives, so she entered that system carrying the heavy weight of that conviction. Let's talk more about what those inmate accounts actually mean. When we say she is reportedly acting like a spoiled celebrity, we are talking about observations from people sharing the same concrete living spaces. In a correctional facility, privacy does not really exist. Every phone call is recorded, every piece of mail is scanned, and every interaction with a guard is logged. If you act entitled, the whole cell block knows about it within hours. Seasoned inmates watch new arrivals closely. They look for signs of respect, humility, or defiance. According to reports from inside, the defiance was noticed quickly. It is fascinating how the justice system works. The judge looked at the conflict between the forensic vehicle data and the defense's medical claims. The judge made a ruling based on the data. Now, the prison warden and disciplinary committees are looking at the conflict between her expected behavior and her actual conduct. They are making rulings based on conduct reports. It is the same process just happening behind closed doors instead of in front of news cameras. I see how this cycle keeps repeating itself, moving from the courtroom straight into the cell block. So you have this young woman who once controlled her own narrative on social media. She could post a video, manage the comments, and shape how people saw her. Now her narrative is being written by correctional officers holding clipboards. If she hides an item in her cell, a guard writes it down. If she argues with staff, a guard types it into the official database. The 32,000 text messages from her past, which police used to show her state of mind before the crash, have now been replaced by the daily conduct logs of her present. And that paperwork never disappears. It follows you to every parole hearing and every cell transfer. This brings us to the core of what we are uncovering today. We are not here to guess what she is thinking in the dark, and we are not here to make up emotional stories. We are here to read the literal, verified files generated by the state of Ohio. The court said her actions on the road were purposeful. The defense continues to say it was a terrible medical anomaly. But while the lawyers argue in appellate courts, prison guards are dealing with the reality of her behavior today. The institutional shock we talked about earlier is not just about wearing a uniform. It is about realizing that the state now owns your timeline. Holy cow. When you really break it down, the contrast between the girl in the TikTok videos and the inmate in the official state reports is exactly why this case is still dominating the conversation. The bureaucratic reality of her time inside tells a highly detailed story. It gives us an objective, facts-first character study based entirely on documented actions, not outside speculation. So, we just finished talking about how the bureaucratic reality of her life inside is telling a completely different story from what we saw in the courtroom. But as we move into the actual disciplinary files, we have to ground ourselves again. We cannot forget Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. While we sit safely on the outside, breaking down conduct reports and prison rules, two families are still trying to make it through each day without their sons. The court said Mackenzie's actions behind the wheel caused that fatal crash. That is the permanent reality those families have to live with. Whenever we talk about the drama happening behind the walls of the reformatory, we have to remember that none of it brings Dominic and Davion back. They were young men with their whole futures still ahead of them. Court records clearly noted that Davion was just an unintended passenger catching a ride. He did not ask to be in that situation. Holy cow, it is incredibly heavy when you realize that while she is arguing with prison guards over privileges, those families are dealing with an empty seat at their dinner table. We always have to keep the focus on the human cost of this tragedy, because the families are the ones serving the real-life sentence of grief. Now, moving into the actual facility records, the paper trail of defiance inside the Ohio Reformatory for Women is absolutely extensive. I mean, to date, official state records show that Mackenzie Shirilla has accumulated 36 conduct reports. And out of those 36 reports, she was given 32 guilty verdicts for rule violations. Wow, think about that number for a second. 32 guilty verdicts. In a highly controlled environment where compliance is literally the only way you earn basic privileges, a record this long is not just a simple mistake or a misunderstanding. It points to a very consistent pattern of pushing boundaries. You have to understand how the disciplinary system actually works inside a state prison. Guards do not just write you up for breathing wrong or looking at them funny. A formal conduct report means a correctional officer had to stop what they were doing, pull your file, document the exact state rule you broke, and submit it to a disciplinary board. It is a massive bureaucratic process. Then, the inmate has a mini hearing inside the prison where a captain reads the charge and they have to plead guilty or not guilty. For the institutional court to hand down 32 guilty verdicts means the evidence of her breaking the rules was strong enough to hold up. That caught me off guard when I first read the logs, because triggering that formal process 36 times shows a serious disconnect from the reality of where she is. Let's break down the specific infractions they documented, starting with the contraband found during routine cell shakedowns. Now, when we say contraband in a women's facility, we are not always talking about the highly dangerous stuff you see in movies. Prison guards have documented multiple instances of Shirilla hiding unauthorized everyday items in her cell. We are talking about unapproved makeup, DIY jewelry, and civilian clothing. Now, to you and me on the outside, these might seem like small, almost silly infractions. Why would the state write someone up for hidden lip gloss or a handmade braided bracelet? But in prison culture, these items carry serious weight. I see how this works once you look at the psychology behind it. Contraband is not just about having forbidden items. It is really about maintaining a sense of status. It is about keeping the illusion of control in an environment specifically designed to restrict almost everything about you. The state gives you a uniform so you look exactly like thousands of other women inside that compound. It strips away your individual identity by design. So unauthorized makeup and altered clothing are often used by inmates to hold on to their former civilian identity. If they can tweak their uniform to look a little more fitted or hide some makeup to wear during recreation time, they use it to lift themselves above the rest of the population. If you are walking around with customized clothing while everyone else is in standard state-issued scrubs, you are sending a very loud message to the block. You are basically saying the rules do not apply to you. And in a place where respect and hierarchy are everything, that kind of behavior puts a huge target on your back. The guards have to crack down on it immediately, because if they let one person alter their uniform or hoard unauthorized items, they risk losing control of the entire housing unit. It is a constant game of cat and mouse, and her record shows she is actively playing it. Why not subscribe to U.S. Crime Stories right now? Join us as we uncover the documented facts and real evidence behind today's biggest legal cases. Beyond the physical contraband hidden in her cell, the official records reveal some serious violations involving her digital privileges. And this part is just wild. The prison logs detail a major video call scandal that led to strict electronic restrictions being placed on her account. Official infractions confirm that guards caught her violating institutional decency rules. How? By exposing herself during video visitation streams with unapproved outside contacts. No way. Yes, that is literally documented in her disciplinary file. To really understand how big of a deal this is, you have to know how communication technology works in a state facility. Video visitation is considered a massive privilege. Inmates usually have to sit at a kiosk in a busy day room, put on state-issued headphones, and look at a screen mounted to the wall. These systems are heavily monitored by security staff. The state records every single second of footage to prevent illegal activity, monitor for gang communications, and maintain general order. Every single inmate knows that a guard is either watching the screen live or reviewing the footage later. So, using a state-monitored platform to bypass decency rules and expose herself on camera is a direct, blatant challenge to the facility's security protocols. She did this knowing the cameras were rolling and the state was watching. The institutional court stepped in quickly, and it resulted in strict electronic visiting bans. They completely shut down her digital access. Right. For an inmate, losing your tablet or video call privileges is one of the harshest non-physical punishments the prison can give. It cuts off your visual lifeline to the outside world. It isolates you. This kind of behavior connects directly to what institutional observers and former inmates describe as the celebrity paradox. You see, inmate accounts and facility reports show that Shirilla receives a steady stream of cash deposited directly into her commissary account. And it is coming from online true crime followers. People on the outside who watch the trial clips on TikTok or YouTube are actually funding her life on the inside. It sounds crazy, but it happens often in these high-profile viral cases. In the prison economy, commissary money absolutely controls your quality of life. It is the difference between just surviving and living with a level of comfort. It buys better hygiene products, good-smelling shampoo, extra food like ramen noodles, chips, and real coffee. It also buys communication credits for phone calls and secure messages. Having strong outside financial support creates an immediate power imbalance on the cell block. It allows an inmate to live comfortably without relying only on the bland, standard prison rations the state provides. This financial privilege creates deep tension with other inmates. Why? Because many of the women serving time alongside her are completely indigent. They have no outside support system. Their families may be estranged, or they simply cannot afford to send $20 a week for coffee and snacks. These indigent inmates rely only on what the state gives them. So, when an inmate with 36 conduct reports and 32 guilty verdicts continues to live with a fully funded commissary account simply because of internet fame, it fuels serious resentment. It directly supports the reports from inside the facility that she operates like a spoiled celebrity. She is insulated from the financial struggles that define daily life for most of the prison population. If you have money in prison, you have power. You can trade instant coffee for favors, you can pay other inmates to do your assigned chores, and you can buy a level of comfort others can only dream about. The court said she belongs in that prison for her role in a fatal crash that took 2 young men from their families. But this outside money is allowing her to bypass some of the hardest parts of that punishment. And the other inmates see it every single day. They see the packages arriving, they see the snacks. That friction is exactly what is leading to the tense, chaotic environment inside her housing unit. And it proves that the drama did not end when the judge struck the gavel. It just moved to a different building. So picking up exactly where we left off, we just talked about all that heavy tension inside the cell block, right? The hidden makeup, the blocked video calls, the commissary money coming in from outside internet supporters. You would naturally assume that an inmate with 36 official conduct reports and 32 guilty verdicts would be sitting in a restricted unit around the clock, completely cut off from any prison privileges. But then prison officials confirmed a completely conflicting update. Mackenzie Shirilla managed to secure an institutional prison job. That caught me off guard at first. I mean, how does someone who keeps breaking state rules end up getting a job inside a maximum security facility? But when you really step back and look at how the correctional system actually works, it starts to make sense. Prisons do not function like normal workplaces on the outside. They balance punishment with labor assignments because that is how they keep the massive facility running. They need inmates to cook the food, clean the floors, handle endless laundry, and maintain the grounds. To the prison system, giving a job to someone with a highly active disciplinary record is not always a reward for good behavior. It can also show that the institution is trying to force compliance through daily exhausting labor. They are pulling her into the working machinery of the prison, despite her constant rule breaking, to impose a strict routine on her. If she is working, she is supervised. She is tired at the end of the shift, and in theory, she is staying out of trouble. But the chaos and disruption around this case do not stop at the heavy prison gates. The fallout is still continuing for her family on the outside. Recently, her father was placed on administrative leave from his school job after highly controversial public remarks he made about the case. The ongoing public attention, the media scrutiny, and the family's actions outside closely mirror the same constant friction she is experiencing inside the walls. It proves that the collateral damage from this fatal crash is still unfolding today. It is rippling through her family, her community, and even the local school system. Yet, while we talk about the disruption affecting her family, we have to pause and center the real victims here. We are talking about Dominic Russo and Davion Flanagan. Before we get into the final legal arguments and the appeals, we absolutely cannot forget that two families are moving through a dark world without their sons. The court said these young men lost their lives because of the actions taken behind that steering wheel. Whatever collateral damage Mackenzie's family is facing with job suspensions or public internet backlash, it does not even come close to the permanent, irreversible loss suffered by the Russo and Flanagan families. Their pain is quiet, heavy, and it outlasts any viral news cycle or TikTok trend. We always have to remember them and respect their grief when we break down these legal steps. Meanwhile, her legal team is pushing hard toward a final legal reality. They have an active appeal filed with the Ohio Supreme Court. And this brings us right back to the core debate of the entire trial. The defense strongly argues that Shirilla was officially diagnosed with postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, commonly known in the medical field as POTS. According to the medical files presented by the defense, this condition can cause sudden, severe drops in blood pressure. They claim this medical condition caused a complete blackout behind the wheel that morning. Their theory, and what they are taking all the way to the Supreme Court, is that she passed out and experienced what is legally called pedal misapplication. That means they firmly believe she was pressing the gas pedal while thinking it was the brake, even though she was completely unconscious. I understand how a medical emergency like that can sound completely plausible on the surface. Medical blackouts happen to people every single day. But the prosecution's forensic data tells a completely different story. And that hard forensic data is exactly what convinced Judge Nancy Margaret Russo to convict her of the highest intentional charges instead of a lesser reckless manslaughter charge. Remember, the judge chose to hold a bench trial. That means there was no jury of her peers. The judge sat alone in that courtroom, listened to the crash experts, and weighed the evidence by herself. And the judge pointed directly to the vehicle's event data recorder. Most people call that the car's black box. The black box data showed the car was driven at exactly 5:30 in the morning, straight into a dead-end wall in a heavily isolated commercial area. The digital metrics recorded by the car's internal computer showed 100% throttle application. She was going exactly 100 miles per hour, and there was 0% brake application. Zero. There was no attempt at all to slow the vehicle down before the massive impact. Wow. On top of that, police testified that the steering was incredibly precise. The car followed a very specific path directly into the brick structure. The prosecution made the argument very clearly. If a driver passes out and loses consciousness, their foot naturally goes limp. A limp foot does not hold maximum downward pressure on the accelerator pedal while the hands steer the car perfectly straight into a wall. To support that argument, police brought in her cellular phone records. They testified that those digital records showed her scouting that exact isolated location days before the crash happened. The court said you do not scout a location, drive there at 5:30 in the morning, apply 100% gas, apply 0% brake, and then say it was just a random medical emergency. The prosecution also made it clear that Davion Flanagan was an unintended passenger. He simply happened to be sitting in the back seat of the car at the time. He just caught a ride, and it cost him everything. Holy cow. When you place the defense's medical theory beside the hard, unblinking digital data pulled from the crushed vehicle, that conflict between both stories is exactly why this case is still being debated across the country. So, as this appeals process slowly moves toward the highest court in the state, her daily behavioral record continues to grow inside the reformatory. An unstable disciplinary file, currently filled with 32 guilty verdicts for rule violations, is going to become a major obstacle when she eventually has to sit down in front of a parole board. The state parole board is not going to look at her social media followers. They are not going to care about the commissary money or the internet fame. They're going to look at a thick folder filled with official conduct reports. They will see the hidden contraband. They will see the unauthorized video calls. They will examine how she respected the rules of the state while she was completely under the state's control. No matter what her outside supporters say on social media, and no matter what her legal team argues in the appellate courts right now, her definite parole eligibility date is firmly set for September 2037. Think about how far away that is. Regardless of the daily drama inside the cell block, regardless of the commissary funds coming in, and regardless of the ongoing conduct reports, those razor wire walls remain fixed around her for the next decade. That is the harsh bureaucratic reality she wakes up to every single morning. The social media world moves on to the next viral story, but time inside a state penitentiary stands completely still. We have laid out the forensic data, the medical defense, and her official prison record. Based on the documented facts of this case and her ongoing behavior inside, I want to know what you think. Drop your answers in the comments below because we really want to hear your take on this. First, based on the black box data showing 100% acceleration and zero braking, did the prosecution definitively prove intent, or should this have been ruled a reckless manslaughter case? Second, the defense is currently appealing to the Ohio Supreme Court, arguing that her medical condition caused a sudden blackout. Can forensic vehicle data fully disprove a medical emergency, or is there still reasonable doubt? And finally, with 36 conduct reports on her record alongside a newly secured prison job, does the correctional system focus more on punishing repeated rule breaking, or are they forcing rehabilitation through institutional labor? Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much for staying until the end today. Please hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next video.